What if the woman who locked Rapunzel in the tower wasn't the villain? What if she was the only one who ever told Rapunzel the truth? The story you know has a tower, impossibly long hair, a handsome prince, and a happily ever after built on a song and a climb. The story that actually exists has a teenage girl imprisoned by the woman who raised her. A stranger who climbed into her bedroom uninvited and called it love. A pregnancy she had to hide in a tower with no doors. And a prince wandering blind and alone through a desert for years, weeping, starving, talking to no one. While the girl he claims to love raises their twins in exile without him. This is not a love story. This is a story about captivity, about what happens when the people who are supposed to protect you decide that protection looks exactly like a cage, about how we dress control up in the language of love and call it care, and about a girl who survived everything: the tower, the witch, the desert, the blindness, the abandonment, and came out the other side not rescued, whole. Welcome to Sinister Stories, and welcome to the real Rapunzel. It begins, as so many of the darkest stories do, with hunger. A woman is pregnant. She lives beside a garden, a beautiful, extraordinary garden, walled and locked and belonging to someone else entirely. A witch. In some versions of the story, her name is Dame Gothel. In others, she has no name at all, which is perhaps more honest, because what she represents doesn't need a name. The pregnant woman looks over the wall into the garden every day, and every day she sees the Rapunzel, a plant, leafy and green and fresh, growing in abundance in the witch's garden. And every day she wants it more. This is the detail the Disney version replaces entirely. Because Disney's version of this story has no pregnancy, no hunger, no garden. Just a baby in a tower, and a glowing flower, and magic hair. The original Brothers Grimm text begins with a woman who wants something she cannot have, and a husband who loves her enough to do something stupid about it. He climbs the wall. He goes into the witch's garden in the dead of night, and he takes the Rapunzel. He brings it back to his wife. She eats it. She wants more. He goes back. The second time, the witch is there. She does not rage. She does not threaten. She makes an offer. You can have all the Rapunzel you want, she tells him. You can have as much as your wife needs for as long as she needs it. I will give it to you freely, in exchange for the child. The husband, panicking, agrees. In some versions, he agrees on the spot, in the dark garden, surrounded by the witch's plants. In others, he goes home and tells his wife, and she agrees too, because the hunger is that bad, or because they don't believe the witch will actually collect, or because they are the kind of people who solve today's problem today and leave tomorrow's for tomorrow. Either way, they agree. The child is born, a girl. The witch comes and takes her. And here is the first dark truth that the story glosses over in its hurry to get to the tower. traded her newborn daughter for salad. Not for gold, not for her life, not under any real threat of violence or death. For a plant she craved while pregnant. The original text does not judge this. It simply states it. The witch comes. She names the girl Rapunzel. After the plant, her mother could not stop eating. She takes her away. And the parents, they disappear from the story entirely. They never look for her. They never fight for her. They made a deal in a garden in the dark, and they kept it. And somewhere in the world, a girl grows up knowing. At some level, she may not even have words for, that she was given away. Dame Gothel raises Rapunzel. This is the part of the story that gets lost in the drama of the tower. That the witch did not kidnap a stranger's child. She raised her. She fed her, clothed her, educated her, talked to her, sang to her. She was, for the first decade of Rapunzel's life, simply her mother. And then, when Rapunzel was 12 years old, some texts say 12, some say when she was old enough to attract attention, which amounts to the same thing. Dame Gothel built a tower in the middle of a forest. No doors, no stairs, one window at the very top, and she put Rapunzel in it. The official reason offered by the story without commentary is that Dame Gothel wanted to protect her, to keep her safe, to ensure that the world could not reach her. But let's look at what she actually did. She took a girl on the edge of adolescence, a girl just beginning to understand her own body, her own mind, her own capacity to want things and make choices. And she removed every option available to her. No doors, no stairs, no way out. The only human contact in Rapunzel's world for the next decade is Dame Gothel, who arrives by calling for Rapunzel's hair, climbing up, visiting, and leaving again. Rapunzel's hair, by the way, has grown to extraordinary length. In the tower with no physical activity, no outdoor life, no world to move through. Her hair has grown and grown until it reaches the ground when let down from the window. It is golden and extraordinary. It is also her only utility. Think about that. In the tower, Rapunzel's value is her hair. Her hair is what allows Dame Gothel to reach her. Her hair is the mechanism of every visit, every interaction, every delivery of food and news and human contact. Without her hair, nothing comes in. Nothing goes out. She is a girl in a tower whose only worth is the length of something she cannot cut, cannot change, cannot control. The tower is not protection. The tower is ownership. Years pass. Rapunzel sings. She has a beautiful voice, luminous, clear, carrying through the forest around the tower. She sings because she has nothing else to do. She sings because the alternative is silence. She sings because singing is the one thing in the tower that belongs completely to her. That Dame Gothel cannot take away, cannot use, cannot climb. She doesn't know anyone can hear her. A prince is riding through the forest. He is, as princes in these stories tend to be, young and on horseback, with no particular destination, and an excess of confidence. He hears the singing coming from somewhere deep in the trees, and he follows it. Because in fairy tales, beautiful voices in forests are always worth following, which is the kind of thing you believe when nothing bad has ever happened to you. He finds the tower. He watches. He sees Dame Gothel arrive at the base of the tower and call up, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." He sees the golden hair fall from the window. He sees the witch climb it like a ladder and disappear inside. He waits until she leaves. Then he goes to the base of the tower himself. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The hair falls. He climbs. Let's stop here, because this moment, presented in every retelling as romantic, as the beginning of the love story, as the prince's ingenuity and courage, is something else entirely when you look at it directly. Rapunzel is in a tower with no doors. She has been there for years. The only person who has ever climbed her hair is the woman who raised her, who put her there, who is the only human being in her world. She hears the words. She lets down her hair. She is not letting down her hair for a prince. She doesn't know there is a prince. She is letting down her hair because that is what she does. That is the only thing she knows how to do when someone calls from below. She did not invite him. She did not choose him. She did not know he existed. He climbed into her room through the window. In the tower with no doors, in the room where a girl has been locked since she was 12 years old, a stranger climbed in through the only opening. And the story calls this a meet cute. Rapunzel is terrified. The original Grimm text is honest about this. She has never seen a man before. She has never seen anyone other than Dame Gothel. The prince is a complete stranger who has appeared, uninvited, in the only space she has ever had to herself. She is frightened. He talks to her. He tells her he heard her singing, and it moved him more than anything he has ever experienced, and he had to find her. He tells her she is beautiful. He tells her he wants to come back. She listens, and then she does something that the story frames as the beginning of love, and that is actually the beginning of a survival calculation. She agrees to let him come back, because what are her other options? Dame Gothel controls everything in her world. The food, the visits, the hair climbing, the contact. Rapunzel has no power, no choice, no way out. And now here is a stranger who is, whatever else he is, not Dame Gothel, who is offering something Dame Gothel has never offered, the possibility of a different world. She doesn't love him yet. She barely knows him. But she is a girl who has been in a tower for years, and he is a door, and she lets him in. He comes back, night after night, while Dame Gothel visits in the days. The prince climbs Rapunzel's hair in the evenings. They talk. He brings her things from the outside world, objects, stories, descriptions of places, she has never seen and may never see. She teaches him things too. She has had nothing to do for years but think and read and observe, and her mind is extraordinary for it. They fall in love, or something that functions like love, the intense, consuming attachment that forms between two people when one of them is starving for human connection, and the other is the only available source of it. He asks her to marry him. She says yes. She makes a plan. Each time he visits, he brings a skein of silk. She weaves it into a ladder. When the ladder is long enough, she will climb down. She will leave the tower. She will go with him. It is the first plan Rapunzel has ever made for herself. The first active choice she has taken toward her own future. She is deeply proud of it. She is also, the original text tells us quietly, pregnant. The slip happens the way these things always happen. Not through betrayal, not through malice, but through the ordinary human failure of not thinking before speaking. Dame Gothel visits during the day. She climbs Rapunzel's hair. She pulls herself up. She enters the room. She sits and talks and brings supplies. The visits are comfortable, established, the rhythm of their relationship for years. And Rapunzel, distracted, happy, her mind full of the prince and the ladder, and the plan, says something. In some versions of the original text, she asks Dame Gothel why she is so much heavier than the prince when she climbs. In others, she simply lets something slip. A reference, a name, a detail that doesn't fit in a world that only contains the two of them. Either way, Dame Gothel knows. In one sentence, Rapunzel has destroyed everything. Dame Gothel's response is immediate. She takes Rapunzel's hair, that extraordinary golden length of it, and she cuts it off. Not gradually, not as a warning, all of it. She cuts it off at the root, and she holds it in her hands, and Rapunzel is left shorn and small on the tower floor. And then Dame Gothel takes Rapunzel, pregnant, hairless, terrified, out of the tower. She takes her to a desert, a wild and desolate place far from the tower, and far from the prince, and far from anything Rapunzel has ever known. She leaves her there. She goes back to the tower. She takes the cut hair. She ties it to the window hook, and she waits. Think about the calculation in that. Dame Gothel does not destroy the hair. She does not abandon the tower. She keeps the mechanism in place, the hair at the window, the words at the base, because she knows the prince will come back. She knows he will call. She knows the hair will fall and he will climb. She waits for him the way you wait for something you have planned for. He comes that evening. He calls the words. The hair falls. He climbs. He reaches the window. He enters. And instead of Rapunzel, Dame Gothel. The original Brothers Grimm text gives her a speech that is worth sitting with. "Aha," she says, "you have come to fetch your darling." But the beautiful bird sits no longer in the nest and sings no more. The cat has got her and will scratch out your eyes too. The cat. She calls herself the cat. She is telling him exactly what she is, and exactly what she has done, and exactly what she intends to do to him. He does not listen in time. In his despair, faced with Dame Gothel, where Rapunzel should be, understanding in that moment that she is gone, and he does not know where, the prince falls or jumps from the tower window. The thorns at the base of the tower catch him. They scratch out his eyes. He survives, barely, bleeding, blind. He wanders away from the tower into the forest. He is alone. He cannot see. He has lost the only person he came for. He wanders. Rapunzel is in the desert, alone, pregnant, no hair, no tower, no Dame Gothel, no prince, no plan, no silk ladder, no skein of hope, just desert, just the wild and desolate place Dame Gothel left her in, with nothing, knowing nothing about how to survive in a world she has never inhabited, because she spent the years. She should have learned those things in a tower with no doors. She survives anyway. This is the part of the story nobody talks about. Not Disney, not the retellings, not the picture books. Rapunzel in the desert, alone, pregnant, building a life out of nothing in a place designed to have nothing in it. She has her voice. She has her mind, the extraordinary mind that years of solitary reading and thinking built. She has, eventually, her children. She gives birth in the desert. Twins, a boy and a girl, in most versions of the original text. She is alone when they are born. She raises them alone. She finds food, water, shelter. She does what human beings do when they have nothing except the will to keep going. She keeps going. Meanwhile, the prince wanders. He walks through forests and over mountains and across fields. He is blind. He eats what he can find by touch, which is not much. He drinks from streams he finds by sound. He sleeps on the ground. He has been, in his previous life, a prince, someone who has never in his life had to find his own food, or make his own shelter, or navigate a world that doesn't accommodate him. The forest does not accommodate him. He wanders for years. Years. The same years Rapunzel spends in the desert raising their children alone. The same years he could have been looking for her. If he had known where to look, if he had known how to look, if the thorns hadn't taken his sight. He wanders, and he starves, and he weeps, and he doesn't find her. And she survives without him finding her. This is the detail the story never fully acknowledges. That in the years of separation, one of them is building something, and one of them is falling apart. One of them is raising two children, and finding food and water, and making a life out of a desert. The other is wandering blind through forests, eating whatever he can find. Rapunzel does not need rescuing. She has already rescued herself. He wanders into the desert. The original text doesn't explain how fate, chance, the particular cruelty of a story that wants resolution, whether the characters deserve it or not. He is there in the desert, still blind, still wandering, still lost. and he hears something. A voice, her voice, Rapunzel's voice, singing to the twins, to the desert, to herself, to whatever listens when there is no one left to listen. The same voice he heard through the trees of the forest years ago and followed to a tower. The same voice Dame Gothel could not take from her, because you cannot cut off a voice the way you cut off hair. He walks toward it. She sees him first. She sees him, blind, thin, wandering, years older than the prince who climbed her hair in the evenings. She sees what has happened to him written in his face and his body, and his searching hands reaching out for anything solid. She goes to him. She takes his hands, and she weeps. 2 of her tears fall into his eyes, and he can see. He looks at her. She is not the girl from the tower. She is something more complex, and more weathered, and more completely herself. Shorn of the hair he fell in love with, thinned by years of desert survival. A woman who has given birth and raised children, and built a life in a desolate place with no help from anyone. She is standing in a desert with 2 small children beside her and tears on her face. And she is looking at him with an expression the story does not fully describe, but that we can imagine. He can see. He can see her. And what does he see? He takes her to his kingdom. This is where every retelling puts the happily ever after. He sees. They embrace. They go to the kingdom. The wedding, the crown, the end. The story stops here, and we are supposed to feel resolution. But the story has, over the previous segments, handed us enough to ask the question the ending doesn't answer. What does Rapunzel actually want? She has survived the tower. She has survived the desert. She has raised 2 children alone, without anyone's help or kingdom or rescue. She has built a life, a hard one, an impossible one, but hers in a place where nothing was given to her and everything had to be made. And now the prince takes her to his kingdom. She goes, but does she choose it? Or does she simply go? The way she has always simply gone, wherever the people with power have decided to put her. Her parents put her in the witch's arms. The witch put her in the tower. The prince put her in the desert. Now the prince takes her to the kingdom. At what point does Rapunzel get to decide where Rapunzel goes? The original text does not answer this. It ends with the reunion, with the tears and the restored sight and the journey to the kingdom, and a sentence about joy. As if joy is the natural conclusion of a story about a girl who was sold for a plant, locked in a tower for a decade, made pregnant by a stranger who climbed in through her window, abandoned in a desert by the woman who raised her, and left to raise twins alone for years, while the man who claimed to love her wandered in circles through a forest. Joy. The Brothers Grimm, in their original 1812 text, were not trying to give us comfort. They were trying to give us a mirror, a record of how the world worked, how women were moved through it, placed in it, removed from it, and what that cost. The later editions sanitized it, removed the pregnancy, softened Dame Gothel, made the prince more heroic, added hope where the original had only survival. But the first version, the real one, ends with a woman walking into a kingdom she did not choose, carrying children she raised alone, beside a man she loves, in the way you love the first door that opened in a room you were locked in. And the story calls it happiness. Maybe it is, but the happiness of someone who has survived everything is a different thing entirely from the happiness of someone who was simply given everything they wanted. Rapunzel's happiness, if it is real, is built on years of desert survival and a voice that could not be cut away, and a mind that kept working even when the world gave it nothing to work with. That is not the same as a prince on a white horse. That is something far more complicated, far more hard-won, and far more true. The Brothers Grimm published Rapunzel in 1812 in their first collection, alongside Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty. Critics noticed immediately that it contained a pregnancy. An unmarried teenage girl locked in a tower, made pregnant by a man who visited through the window at night. By the second edition, the pregnancy references had been removed. By the later editions, the story had been tidied and softened until the surviving text was something you could read to a child at bedtime without answering questions you weren't prepared for. But the first version is still there. The original is still there if you know where to look. And in it, Rapunzel is not a girl waiting to be rescued. She is a girl who was given away before she could speak, locked up before she could choose, and left to survive when the one person she trusted decided she was no longer useful. She survived, not because of a prince, not because of magic hair, not because the story was kind to her, because she had a voice. And in the desert, with no tower, no witch, no prince, no plan, she used it. That is not a fairy tale ending. That is something better. Next week on Sinister Stories, The Little Mermaid. Hans Christian Andersen's original has no happy ending. No Ariel, no Sebastian, no legs that work without agony. Just a girl who wanted something she wasn't built for and paid for it with every step she ever took. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the dark.